Hey folks, wanted to post a video about Ram 1500 pickup truck with the 3.6 liter Pentastar V6. And the question I want to try to answer for some people is this motor adequate for a 4x4 vehicle for most of the uses you're going to put it through? And I'm probably a pretty good person to answer that question. I'm a forester by trade. I get off the road every week. You can see by my tires, I've got some BF Goodrich all-terrain TAs, and I've got the outdoor package, outdoorsman package on this, and which is really an ideal vehicle for me because it comes with some things that standard that are important to me. One is the 32-gallon gas tank. I drive about 30,000 miles a year, and just not having to go to the gas station all the time means a lot to me. The Outdoorsman also comes with the 355 rear end. At least it did standard at that time. I noticed 2016 when was last year they made the Outdoorsman, they were sticking a lot of 321s in there. I'll address that in a minute. And it has some other features that are just pretty convenient for me, and I'm glad to have it. So is this motor adequate for a lot of your off-road use and actually on-road? I will tell you overall, I'm very impressed with the motor. I've got 195,000 miles on this truck. I bought it with 93,000 miles, so it's seen its share of highway use, and I get off-road enough in some pretty tough situations. And what I found is that overall, I'm very impressed with the motor. I'm still impressed to this day, particularly when you're zipping around town or stuff, where you rely more on the horsepower side of it to get you around and going. This truck weighs 5,400 pounds, so it's pulling a pretty good sized vehicle on it. It's still performing well. I'll tell you about some other things you keep in mind for issues to watch out for. And but what I found is, the weak link in this whole motor is the 260 foot-pounds of torque, and 269. And where that becomes evident is on the highway when you're pulling hills and stuff like that, and also when you go into four-wheel drive. Now, the secret to this vehicle is the 8-speed transmission. If it weren't for that, this truck wouldn't have a prayer as far as this motor is concerned. But it really makes all the difference in the world. And but what I found is when you get off-road, particularly if you're in soft terrain, is the first gear is really tall in this transmission. And when you're in first gear in four-wheel drive, everything's fine. When it falls down in second gear, which it will pretty quickly if you're just tooling around, it really puts a little bit more of a strain on that engine to try to pull all four wheels. So what I do automatically when I get into a four-wheel drive situation, assuming speed is not the ultimate goal here, I will lock it into first gear. I'll just use a little toggle on the dashboard, and I will keep it in first gear. And the key is just keeping the RPMs up. You keep it up 2,500, maybe 3,000 RPMs, and you can go through just about anything. It will pull through it. That's the way this motor is. It really, 3,000, 4,000 RPMs, I mean, you hit the gas and it will flat out take off. But the torque really becomes an issue in that regard. On the highway, what I found is I tend to end up toggling a downshift prior to the engine signaling it needs a downshift. So in other words, I anticipate a hill coming, I see the hill coming, I will go ahead and put it into 7th gear, not because I have to, but most hills, 7th gear will pull almost anything on this as far as, but sometimes you'll hit a hill and the hill will be abrupt enough that it'll drop down to 6th, and occasionally it might hit a 5th gear. And I'm just preventing it from having to drop down 2 gears when it could easily drop down 1 and it'll pull it. So towing capacity is about 6,800 pounds, and I've towed every bit of that before, and it wasn't like it was jumping for joy over it, but it did pull it. But anyway, that should give you something. Would I buy one again? I would. If I were to buy one today, I would get a Rebel not crew cab, but a quad cab with the V6. And the reason is it comes with the 392 rear end, which is what I think it really needs. And also, I don't need a crew cab anymore. My kids are grown up enough that I just need a second back seat, just more or less to put things. And so between the weight savings of the 2019 and the crew cab, or the quad cab over the crew, that's going to knock about 500 pounds off the vehicle. And they've also made some nice improvements to the Pentastar, not only the e-torque, but one thing that doesn't get mentioned is they've redone the intake on it, and so you're going to have 15% more torque, below 3,000 RPMs. And I think you couple that with 500 pounds lighter weight, and I think it would be pretty nice. I think it would be noticeably different. One thing to keep in mind about this engine has been through my experience is it's really hard on oil. I would not push your mileage. 10,000 miles would be the most, but I run a good synthetic in here, and it is hard on the synthetic. Even at 7,500 would be the max. This thing doesn't burn any oil. It's been fine, but one of the things that you'll find with this generation of the V6, there's some valve lashes that will start ticking on you, sometimes below 100,000 miles. Mine occurred at about 175, and I had them all replaced, and that's kind of expensive. I think I spent $1,500 on that. So really keep your oil changed in this thing. Use a good synthetic, and I think you maybe can avoid that. And hope this helps you out. I'm sure there's some other things I can mention, but overall very pleased with the truck and look forward to my next one.